Hey, good evening, everybody. It's Steve with Real Progressives. I have the joy and privilege of bringing on friend and activist Dave Matheny. I met Dave in Washington, D.C. at the Occupy inauguration meetings, and we were at the summit on Sunday in Washington, D.C., and it was a pleasure to get to meet him. He's putting a lot of time and energy in trying to bring about a long lost idea of a people's second Bill of Rights. And this is something FDR brought forward, something that I believe strongly in. And so, with no further ado, I'm going to go ahead and bring my guest, Dave Matheny, on. Dave, welcome to Real Progressive, sir. How are you tonight?
I'm great. I'm great. How are you, Steve?
I'm doing wonderful. So you impressed the living hell out of me. You're a very humble guy. You're soft spoken, and I didn't know what to expect when I was talking to you. And there you are, humble as can be, telling me you're about to take the country 50 states by storm with your own money, with your own time. You're putting your life on hold to do this. Without further ado, man, tell me, what the hell is it that you're doing, and why are you doing it?
Yeah. What I'm doing, I started an organization called the People's Amendments, and that's a very purposeful title because I think the major thing we miss in our American democracy is actual democracy. Um, we don't have the ability to affect our own governance anymore. We don't have the ability, even in large part, to participate. There are barriers to entry into the political system. So what I'm doing with this organization, I'm traveling all 50 states. It's going to take me at least 2 years. I'm a wildland firefighter up in Alaska. That's how I make my money. But it's a wonderful job because it allows me 6 months off every year to do these things that I'm passionate about. So I'm going around the country. We're promoting, and I say we because I'm not alone anymore. I've been to several states, and I've got a lot of folks that have come on board. But we're promoting, as you said, what we are fashioning. It's a little different from FDR's, but we borrowed some of the language, America's Second Bill of Rights, and these will be designed to increase citizen agency and enfranchisement. So basically, as I said, the ability to affect their own outcomes in a citizen's government and the ability to participate. The two
Okay.
major yeah, yeah. The two major focuses are getting the money out of politics, because I think that most in the country understand that you have to have a certain size of bank account to even participate in the policymaking process. And second, the other major detriment to American democracy, in our view, is the stranglehold of the two-party system.
My God, you're hitting the nail on the head, buddy. So let me ask you a question real quick, because here's my greatest concern.
Okay?
Now, as far as you are talking, the things that go through my head, the GOP is currently pushing for what they call a constitutional convention. I think they're like one or two state houses away from being able to make this thing happen. And there are many people out there who don't share your sensibilities. I do, but I'm saying there's many of them that don't on that side, and some even on the center left, supposed center left side, the
Yeah.
Democrats. So when I think about anybody uncorking amendments, and I think about anybody adjusting any of the uh, founding documents at all,
Yeah.
it's not that
You're,
I'm not with you. Because if we were just you and I sitting around smoking a bowl, watching something, doing something, hanging out, making things happen, that would
yeah.
be a
Yeah.
different story. But we've got these other people over here that are rugged individualists who don't give two shits about us having any rights. They're just about my freedoms and my guns. And I don't really know how to get past that. So talk to me a little bit about your strategy and what it is that you're thinking that you'll be able to do to affect the change you're talking about affecting.
Okay. Certainly a 50-state strategy is an exhaustive process. So what I'm doing right now, because my belief is, and it's not just my belief, one of the sort of deficits in this modern age of organizing on the internet is it's real easy to contact people, but there's very little follow through. We don't have that hardcore person to person. Back in the day, it was people approaching their pastors and local businessmen and whomever, just their fellow citizens. We rely far too much on the process of electronic organizing. So that's why I set out. It's in part symbolic, right? Because I am expending so much energy doing this, but it's also that it's making those real ties with people in every state in the country. That there will be follow through. I mean, there's a real person at the end of this thing, so our strategy is to get as far and wide engagement as we can with all ends of the political spectrum. Because to get, as you well know, I'm sure, a constitutional amendment, you have to have 75%. That's the threshold of all state legislatures have to be on board for whatever is passed. So that's going to take a lot of popular energy. We will ask, we will approach the federal legislature, but we're not naive about this. A lot of the things we're doing are going to limit their influence. It's not just the corporations that are corrupt; it's also our politicians. And I hate to say that. I think that I'm a poli-sci guy. I've been interested in politics my whole life, but they just can't be trusted anymore. So if I could, I would like to talk about what's our cornerstone amendment, and then how we'll go forward with creating the other four amendments in our second Bill of Rights, if that's okay.
Oh, absolutely. In fact, I'm kind of freewheeling with that because it was an interesting idea. I've been fighting for myself, and I always worry because we have great ideas, but we aren't living in a monolith. We're living in a pluralistic society where when you start injecting rogue variables, it gets scary. So anyway, I just want, yes, please take your time and roll this out for us. Talk about it and let us know where this is going, man. Thank you.
Sure. Yeah, and like I suggest, this is going to be a very deliberative, energetic process, and where it starts is building an organization in all 50 states, and then it becomes and getting as wide engagement as we can, and then it comes to crafting the amendments. And as I mentioned before, they specifically we're sort of the lanes that we're staying in are increasing citizen agency and enfranchisement. So our number one, and this is the only one that we actually have draft language for. We have to start getting the corrosive influence of money out of politics. So if I can read it really quick, this is a draft version.
Please do, by all means, man. I appreciate this immensely. Go for it.
So this is Amendment 28, is what it would be to the United States Constitution. It states, all campaign contributions shall be limited to individuals' donations up to a maximum of $700, inflation adjusted to 2016. For purposes of this amendment, an individual is defined as a single, living, breathing human. A qualifying individual must be a legal resident of the United States of America. Contributions under this amendment apply to political candidates and ballot issues per election cycle. A singular exemption to the maximum donation limit applies to a donation made by a candidate to their own campaign and may at maximum equal $10,000 inflation adjusted $2016, with all other stipulations of this amendment applying. Section 2, and in our view, this is particularly important if you limit donations to issues and campaigns. You also have to limit to political organizations. All donations to political organizations shall be limited to individuals' donations up to the maximum of $700 inflation-adjusted $2016 per year. A political organization is defined as an organized group of persons seeking to influence electoral, legislative, and public policy outcomes. Now, why that is particularly important is because if we don't do that, if we don't limit the amount going into a political organization, and our organization will fall under this definition, then you'll have these wealthy interests back at it again. They'll donate $1 billion to the Democratic Party, or $1 billion to the Republican Party, or $1 billion to can't think of them, NRA, yeah, NRA, whatever these interest groups are, and that would give them a larger influence than the People's Amendments, or whatever other organization you're looking at. So that's one, and that's in stone. We're not backing down from an amendment on campaign finance. Money has to be out of politics. Now, we're open to adjusting the language and such, but
That's great.
yeah. And the other ones, could be a wide variety of things. How about universal enfranchisement? How about you just got to be 18 to vote? I mean, wouldn't that be wonderful? I mean, that's sort of the promise we were given, right? A citizen.
Absolutely.
And other things, electronic districting. Take it out of, biased, self-interested, politicians. It doesn't matter which party you belong to. They all draw the lines to fulfill their own self-interest. Those are just a couple of ideas. So
No,
after
that's,
this process, yeah,
can I make a suggestion?
yeah,
Can Steve?
exactly. Yeah.
So here's the one I would like to interject, right? So you have a lot of people out there, and these are the people who I'm literally fighting against, okay? And they come in all shapes and sizes, and they believe in a balanced budget amendment, which would literally be the death knell of the United States of America and would put an awful lot of misery on the average citizen. So what I would like to do is propose a balanced economy amendment that would force the government to spend to keep the economy at a certain level at all times and make it an inflation constraint so that we never have any poor. I would like to make a job a right. I would like to make healthcare a right. And the only way to do that is to make it part of our Constitution, to make that an actual right, to spell it out. I mean, healthcare, the economy, so that they can't to make the workers have a job guarantee if they want it. I think these are amendments that literally empower the world to be more unfucked. I mean, the answer for us, I think, stems there. So what do you think, man? You think I got a shot?
I certainly agree with everything that you just said. My only, it's not even a misgiving. I mean, that is exactly what I would like to do if I had, the authoritarian power for a day, only a day, because I'm not ego driven, but those are the things I would do. I believe in universal health care. I believe in universal higher education. I believe in that's an interesting term that you used. What was it again? A balanced? Oh no. What was it again? Balanced spending. I forget the term that you used for the
Oh,
economy.
it would be a balanced economy versus a balanced budget. The balanced budget
Exactly.
is like it's pretending like somehow or another we got to find U.S. dollars when we're the creator of U.S. dollars. So why not make it a balanced economy? That way, no matter what, if we have a trade deficit, if we have a trade surplus, no matter what, our government can do the right thing without worrying about the debt ceiling, without worrying about any other bullshit political mechanism. We can do the right thing by the people.
Yeah, no, and I agree with you. That's probably one of the most powerful amendments we could make, because right now, when they talk about balanced budget, what it really means is continue cutting the programs, social safety net programs for Americans, and giving tax cuts to people that don't need them. Why are we
That's right.
subsidizing the wealthiest industries in the history of the planet? I happen to be talking about the oil and gas industry. It makes no sense. It's nonsense. It's a red herring. They're convincing us of a reality that's not actual reality. It's like a shill game. So I agree with you
All facts.
100%. Yeah. That would be a wonderful life lived and passion and energy spent. What we're trying to do as an organization is more fundamental. We're actually attempting to allow the space to make progressive action like that. My baby, and I'll try to explain it really quickly. I'm in a little bit of a fortunate position. I don't want to over influence this process because it really is meant to be a collaboration and a contributive process with as many Americans as we can engage. But number two, where I would, if I was writing, if there were Dave's amendments, which they're not, and it won't be, but I would change the way that we elect people and how we do it now. And we've heard it, and it's been a really popular subject. Jill Stein has mentioned it. But what we need to do is change to a proportional representation system and a multi-member districts. So what that means, instead of electing one person from one district, and it's winner take all, which is inherently unrepresentative, right? Because that means a large part of the minority is not represented off the bat. Not to mention the people that the winning party suggests they're going to represent. So what we need to do is have a lot of members, whatever it might be. 5, let's say 5. I can do math with 5s and 10s. So 5. If you have 5 representatives, that means there are going to be the minimum threshold is 20%. Now I can tell you right now, let's just talk about the phenomena of Bernie. How many Bernie-crats would have been elected in state legislatures, in the federal legislature, had the threshold been 20% instead of 50%, or 50, whatever the plurality happens to be. It's not about us versus them. It's about seats at the table. That's it. We can't have one seat at the table. That's necessarily restrictive. So anyway, that would be my golden child amendment. And what that does is allow opinions into the process. We can have accountability on issues like the environment, like the economy. Right now, we don't. So anyway, fundamentally, I think that we need. This is one of the terms that I've been using a lot: a renaissance in the American political system. That means a rebirth, a refreshing. It's gone disastrously wrong, and I'm not naive to think that it wasn't a self-interested document when it was created. I mean, there were wealthy folks that were trying to protect their rights, their wealth and land rights, and that's okay because they were men just like you and me. We're flawed. We don't come to we come to compromise, and it's ugly and it's dirty and it makes sense for the time. So that's what we need to do again. They gave us this mechanism of the constitutional amendment so that we could do just that. They knew that this thing would grow and change and morph over time. So that's what we're getting at. And I would hope, this is the dream again, that this becomes an everyday process for America. It's not this untouchable, fantastical process that it took the women's suffrage movement 74 years to pass women's suffrage. That is ridiculous. We have a much different system now. We have the possibility for more democracy than we ever have. I don't know how many people will see this video that we're on today, but
hopefully a lot.
Yeah, hopefully a lot. And hopefully people are going to repost it and whatever they do. I'm not too tech savvy. I don't know if you can tweet this thing. I know you can put it on Facebook. This is what democracy looks like. People talking to each other, neighbors, friends, and that's what we want. And we want this system to be open and democratic and honest, for everyone. And we're not in the game. We're not in the business of picking winners and losers. We just want to all have a fair opportunity. We believe in one person, one vote. So I digress.
So one of the people in our audience asked me to ask you if you know about Wolfpack, the group that's trying to get money out of politics. Are you familiar with them?
Very much so. I have spoken to a couple of their state level guys, one in Texas and one in West Virginia. I haven't talked to the national level guys. It seems like a perfect pairing to me because, and I don't by any means suggest that I speak for them. So my interpretation of their focus could be a little off, but I know that they're concerned with Citizens United, as are we. That's why we didn't mention it in name, but it was very definite in the text of that amendment that I read to you. I think it's a natural fit because they're going for an Article 5 constitutional convention. And where it fits, I believe, is that once we achieve that process, and we believe, and there's debate, there's definitely debate, and you kind of alluded to it earlier in some of your questions. There's debate as to whether or not you can narrow the focus in a constitutional convention. Um, I don't have. I wish I could say definitively that you can. I think the majority, whatever level that might be, it might be as low as 55% of the scholars on the subject. I don't know what it is, honestly, what level of certainty, but they believe we can limit the subjects in a constitutional convention.
Well,
And
so
go
just
ahead.
one of the things that I wanted to bring up, and obviously, I support the spirit of what you're trying to do, but I will throw caution at this because I think that there's a great, and I'm not accusing you of this, so we're on the same page, but there's a
Yeah,
lot
yeah,
of progressives in this movement that it's kind of like shoot, ready, aim, and
yeah, yeah,
they're not thinking through things. And for guys like me, and I'm presuming you, it's a bit maddening because you're really trying to take a cerebral approach to very
yeah.
serious issues. And the whole, I'm angry, so I've got to act, and I'm just going to act. I don't really know what I'm doing, but I'm acting. I'm repeating something somebody else said, and he said it with a lot of conviction. So fist in the air, I'm angry, and that's the way it is. And for me, it's one of the most harrowing aspects of being a progressive because they don't understand how many Pandora's boxes they're opening because it's not just a progressive country. In fact, the GOP has almost three-quarters of the state houses in America, just so we're on the same page. So we're heavily
Yeah.
dependent on the GOP. And the
I
GOP wants a balanced budget amendment come hell or high water. Look at it. It's a very, very real thing. And I swear on my life, you want to talk about devastating.
yeah, yeah.
First of all, just I don't want to give you an econ lesson here, but just so you understand, because we don't produce a lot of things in this country, we have chosen to trade paper dollars for real goods and services. It's a win for us, even though we don't look at it that way because our government keeps telling us we're broke. Okay.
Yeah.
So what happens is that when our money leaves the country, the bathtub shrinks. The amount of money that's in the bathtub shrinks. Then you've got people's natural savings that they want to hoard some money of their own. The very rich and the middle range, and even to some degree the poor, but they're usually spending every penny they have as quickly as it comes. So all of a sudden the bathtub keeps draining and draining and draining, and we get to this point where we've got nothing left in it. But our budget said this is all we can spend, and the Constitution now says we have to balance the budget.
Yeah.
So that means all of a sudden that we can't get out of this death spiral. And you want to talk about depressions, you want to talk about real hardcore death, that's the answer to it. A balanced budget amendment is the death knell for this country. And so by opening up a constitutional convention, and they have the majority of the state houses, we are not in control, they are. This is what they want. This is the most important. So in order for them to give you a constitutional convention, just remember, they're going to read up on it. I promise you, this is one of my greatest fears. They're going to bring out this idea of a balanced budget. And there's an awful lot in our midst that don't know jack about economics. And they will say, hey, you know what? The Rothschilds do this, that, and the other. Soros. So we got to do a balanced budget. Yeah. Why should the federal government spend more money than I can in my own personal household?
Yep.
Well, the federal government prints the freaking money, dude.
Yeah.
Oh, Lord. And so it's so frightening when you think about it like that. That, for me, is the single scariest aspect of us. I love everything else. I just want you to be aware of that. But I got to say that it scares me in the gut, in the pit of my stomach, that scares me. Anyway,
No, I agree, and it's my belief that if we don't make some substantial, durable, long-term change to the political process, that outcome is a certainty. We're on track for a depression. I haven't seen. I mean, they're enacting it in policy right now, even without a constitutional amendment. They're that will limit pluralist society, and that means tax cuts for the wealthy, like I mentioned, right to work, and we are going to have most likely a right to work law as soon as I forget the gentleman's name, but the next justice is on the Supreme Court.
Gorsuch.
Yeah, Gorsuch. That scares the living daylights out of me. Because now our one, sort of shield, as weak as American unionism has become, is now evaporated, and that's going to happen in the next year. The only way for us to, stop gap or hold the line is to continue to be out there in the streets, and us, cerebral. I like that term. Progressives are just going to have to be up on that soapbox, and as much as we can use the megaphones that we're allowed and passion and energy to try to focus, to try to educate folks. I wholeheartedly agree with you. That would be an end to American democracy. It doesn't allow for any reasonable economic engagement by the average citizen. It doesn't. It would be like laissez-faire, Wild West, puritanical in some sense economics. Austrian economics. Let's be clear what type of economics we're talking about.
Right. Okay, so let's talk a little bit about the organization itself that you're with. Talk to me a little bit about how it started. Talk to me a little bit about who all's in it, how we can be a part of that. Just fill us in on the backdrop here.
Okay. So it started. It was one of I'll throw a shout out for her, Sophia Sepulveda. She's down in San Antonio. Came up with this term to me and I like it. She calls me the creative force behind the organization. It's my baby. You guys will see if you go on to Facebook and look up the People's Amendments that it was born on November 1st. That's when I started the Facebook page. These seeds were, instilled, planted, sowed, began to germinate in me years ago, well before, this sort of what I believe started in 2011 with the Occupy movement, but this progressive wave, progressive movement. So I started it. And I have a limited time frame, 6 months every year, and it was time for me to hit the road. I drafted 2 amendments, that one on campaign finance and the one on, I wrote one on term limits as well. I'm not promoting that one because, again, I don't want to rig the game for Dave's opinions, but and I hit the road. First I canvassed my state of Alaska, and that's my home territory. So I got lots of friends there. And then I got on the ferry, got off down the West Coast, down to Texas, back up over east. I'm just outside of Boston right now. I have another meeting tomorrow. So I've been able to reach out some like-minded folks in several states now, all over the country, and they've agreed to help me out. And the way best for people to get, if they want to contribute to the process, there's so many ways. Whether it's just sharing their opinions or getting active and helping draft these things, and then trying to promote them later when we get that far. Is go to the Facebook page. That's the best place. There's a number on there. It's a what do you call it? Google Mail or something like that number. I can't remember what it's called.
Google Voice. Yep.
Exactly. Google Voice rings directly to my phone. We answer every message, every concern, and that's number one. How to get involved and engage in this process.
Okay. All right, so let me ask you a question, because you obviously are doing something that many of us, that are activists, dream about to some extent, and that's being able to just go out there and do it without any holds barred. But that takes some money. It takes some planning. It takes some, creativity on getting around and stuff. How are you managing?
It does. Well, okay, so the creativity first started with Facebook, right? That's how I'm getting most of my contacts. and people put me up very often, or I sleep in rest stops, or I do. Right now, I'm in a Airbnb. So whatever I have to. Last night, I slept in the Walmart parking lot, which I'm not a fan of Walmart, but that's pretty cool that they I didn't know this, but they let you sleep in their parking lot. So that's one of my strategies. And yeah, I'm a wildland firefighter. I'm a public servant. I'm not that wealthy, and I'm just praying that my car doesn't break down before I get back to Bellingham in April. It's been, yeah, it's taken some creative energy, and to get this thing. But what I am blessed with, and I'm thankful for it, and it's exactly, I think, what most people don't have these days is time. That's the one thing that you can give and never get back. It's invaluable. You can't put a number on it, especially when everything else in society does have a number on it. So that's it. So I'll be committed to this process year after year until God willing, my health holds out. Pretty healthy guy, I'm in shape. For me, and I hope it doesn't take that long. But like I mentioned, I briefly mentioned the women's suffrage movement. I take a lot of um, um, direction in their tactics. I am inspired by their level of commitment and their ingenuity and everything they went through. So I'm okay with however this thing ends up in the end. I do have faith in the American people. I don't obviously have faith in the two-party system, and that one system that has an overwhelming, or that one party that has overwhelming majority right now. Not that I would trust the other one very much more, but I do have a deep faith in the American people, and I'm reinvigorated in that idea every day. I see people from every political persuasion, and all of them understand that their needs, their desires, their interests are not being represented. And I guess it's a race, to directly sort of um, talk to your major concern. It's a race. It's us versus them. We have to build enough political pressure, and it's not just the People's Amendments. It's every group out there that is spending energy, and we need to talk to each other, and we need to
Absolutely.
focus. Yeah. So I think that's how we succeed.
That's wonderful. Okay, so my concerns aside, I want to tell you I am so impressed with you as a person, and the energies and the effort you're putting in to me are second to none. That to me tells me that you know what you're willing to do what you have to do to make your dream come true. And that rhymed accidentally, but the reality is that you really are doing it. And for me, it's not good enough for people to just have an idea. It's really nice to watch people attempt at least to execute. And that's what you're doing. You're putting your time and your treasures behind your dream and you're trying to make it happen. And I applaud you for that. So let me ask you, we're kind of coming up here on the time. What would you like to leave our audience with how they can contact you? Do you need donations? I know you mentioned stuff about helping out with just sharing and helping write the amendments, but how can we support your travels across the 50 states, man?
Yeah, yeah. No, like I mentioned, definitely to reach out. The easiest way to get a hold of us, the Facebook's amendments. You got to have the apostrophe before the S in people's to spell it right. But so that's the best way to contact us. And I'm not very good at asking for money, but I have set up a GoFundMe. It's the same title, the People's Amendments, and I've had a few friends that have been more than generous. I've raised about $1,000, and I've needed it. I have a goal of about 7,000 on there, and I need that. Yeah, so that would be wonderful if $5 or $3, $2. It doesn't matter. I'd be more than appreciative for any help that anyone wants to give me in
Well,
that fact.
I tell you what, after we're done with the interview here in a moment, just send me the link, the GoFundMe link, and I'll be happy to put it in the narrative of this interview. And when people share it, they'll see the link, and we'll make sure that people can see that.
Yeah, I would be grateful for that.
Okay. All right. Well, with that, I'm going to go ahead and thank you for your time, Dave. This was a pleasure for me. Again, it was really nice to meet you. I mean, you've been very persistent in driving, and that is literally the only way anything gets done. And more importantly, you've been humble, and that really, really allows people to kind of drop their wall and listen. And I think you've got a great demeanor for doing this undertaking. Again, I do ask you as a friend and a fellow journeyman here to please look into some of the things I raised on this call to try to help offset that, because that really is something very frightening that we need to have a counter to, as a movement, to understand that, the responsibility of opening Pandora's box is knowing how to close it when the time is right. So I just want to go ahead and throw that out there. All right. Well, with that, thank you so much for your time. I'd love to have you back on later on when you've gotten a couple more states down the road. Tell us some of your progress.
Yeah, that would be amazing. That would be great.
Awesome, man. You got an open invitation. We'll talk to you soon, Dave. Thank you so much, buddy.
Thank you, Stephen.
All right. Have a great night. Thank you, guys. We'll see you later.
Thank you, everybody.